boys screws loose, they done stripped the bolts on them. Should've never sent them to pick up the work for them. Sprayed the park and had my shit inside the car. Marcus Smart boy was shooting with a 36 on him. Said if he wasn't in the rush, they was all goners. Tech cursive on the jets, he was gonna Sean John them. They was sleeping on the guards and it dawned on them.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Chuddy's Corner. I'm your host, Ben Handler, aka King Chuddy, joined as always by my co-host and good friend Nick Perino. Nick, how we doing?
I'm feeling pretty good, Ben. I'm glad we waited a little while to get this podcast in. I'm sure we probably should have done it sooner, but I'm feeling a little bit more level-headed now, and I think I'm ready to finally put a bow on the season.
Yeah, it's you're right. It is a little overdue. So we're recording Thursday, June 23rd, just after 1 p.m. on the East Coast. It is draft day in the NBA. So that's kind of how the league moves. It's good luck getting over the finals in a day or two. We're already onto the draft. We're onto the off season, all that good stuff. So yeah, this is our first pod since we went live right before Game 6. So today on the show, Nick and I will recap the finals, without kind of beating a dead horse too much. Talk a little about that, then put a little bow on the season as a whole, stepping back from the finals. And then we will get into some of that good slop. We'll talk a little bit of draft, a lot of offseason, kind of from a more macro sense, and then we'll get real grimy. And I was just telling Nick I got a list of about 38 names that are guys I could see the Celtics going after this offseason, maybe with varying degrees of realisticness. So we got a lot to dig into. It should be a fun show. Before we get started, as always, a little housekeeping. If you're not already, follow, subscribe to the show, Chuddy's Corner on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. You can check us out on Twitter at Chuddy's Corner. Of course, each of our personal accounts, I'm at King Chuddy. Nick is at _Nick Perino. And the easiest way to check out all of our content is on the blog, which is just nickperino.com. You'll see the big button on the main page, Chuddy's Corner. You'll see all our blogs about the Celtics, the NBA, and, of course, every podcast. So check it out. We appreciate all the engagement. And it seems like, the offseason can be the time that you get more engagement than the actual season. That's just the nature of the NBA. So we've had, a fun couple of months with that playoff run, and we're going to hopefully have a fun couple of months now coming up with this offseason and seeing how we can run it back and, beat ourselves into the ground even a little bit more. Like I said, 24/7, 365 league nowadays. So gotta love it. And again, makes it easier to move on from the finals loss when you've got all this other stuff already going down. So like I said, we'll get on to all of that and more, but we obviously got to start with those NBA finals as the season is finally and officially over. Golden State defeated Boston 4-2, won their fourth title in 8 years, sixth appearance in 8 years. So I don't know if you'd call Golden State a dynasty, but they're certainly the closest thing there is to a dynasty in the NBA right now. So, kudos to them. Another title for Golden State, a disappointing loss for the Celtics. Obviously,
I think you got to call them a dynasty.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, this is 4 and 8 years.
4 and 8.
I mean,
years.
That's so half. They've won half of the last 8 championships. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
How is that? I mean, I think by today's standards, that's a dynasty.
Well, yeah. So okay, I would say by today's standards, a dynasty. And I mean, they 2 of those other finals they lost. So to go to 6 in 8 years, it feels like weird. With obviously Durant leaving and then 2 years in a row of no playoffs, like it feels weird now that they're back.
Yeah, but no Clay.
No, I mean it's reasonable excuses. Like I get why. I don't know. It feels.
I mean,
it doesn't.
Missing
feel
the
like
playoffs is a ding on the resume for sure.
Well, 2 years in a row too. So that's what I'm saying. It's like I don't know. But obviously they went to the finals 5 times in a row before that. So I don't know. It's
that first championship
guys are still there, but it's like it's a different iteration. Like it's such a different team now without Durant. I don't know. It almost feels like 2 separate eras, I guess. I don't know.
That first championship feels like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I can't believe that was only 8 years ago, whatever it was.
Right. And that one was probably closer to this version of the team than anything else. So
right.
All right, but anyway, so let's kind of start there and dig into the finals. And before we talk about the Celtics, that was kind of the first thing on my list that I think you got to just give the Warriors credit. Like, I think, unfortunately for us, it was probably the right outcome. I think the teams were very even, and I think we saw a very, very high level of basketball being played. And there's a lot of things, a lot of clear and obvious things that the Celtics should have done better, could have done better, this and that. But at the end of the day, I think the number one reason that they lost is because the Warriors are just a slightly better team. They were just a little crisper and everything they did. Their execution was a tiny bit better. Their kind of poise and intangibles were a lot better. And I think, their playing was better. Their coaching was better. They're just a little bit of a better team. They're more ready for this, obviously. All the championship experience, this and that, it kind of showed up. And, like, I hate to say it, but it just kind of feels like this was the right outcome. It's hard to be, mad as a fan that we lost, but it's hard to be, like, too upset that, it was some awful showing. Like, I think at the end of the day, we have nothing to be ashamed of. Hard-fought series. And we just weren't quite ready to get past that final hump. And like I said, I think you give credit to the championship medal of Golden State, the coaching of Kerr, obviously the brilliance of Steph Curry, and then up and down the roster, their guys just kind of stepping up, and ours kind of looking like looking like the expression is like, act like you've been there before. The Warriors have, and they acted like it. And the Celtics, at a lot of times, it kind of showed their inexperience, their youth, and all those things. Again, not to make excuses for them, but this is kind of like historically the nature of the NBA. The young team goes up against the veteran team, and it takes a while to get over the hump, and the Celtics just weren't quite there yet. And I think that's ultimately my biggest takeaway from these finals.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, like you said, you can't take anything away from Golden State. They, arguably we were maybe the more talented team, I guess you could say, but I think overall their roster construction was, probably better than ours. I mean, it seems like all their pieces slot in perfectly for what they try to do.
Yeah.
Very few weak links. I mean, maybe a couple defensively. But overall, they're just built. They're built like a champion, and like you said, I mean, the experience, just having a team full of veterans, having some youth in there too to spark, give him a spark every once in a while. I mean, and Steph Curry, I think, proved that he's not just a shooter, not just a great shooter. He's an amazing basketball player.
Yeah. I mean, Steph, that's kind of the other big takeaway when you look up and down and you say that, like, the teams are pretty even. Maybe we even have more talent, but, like, Steph Curry is just on another level from, even our young superstars of Tatum and Brown, who, like, hopefully will be at that point. And Tatum, you could arguably is already at the point of, like, one of the top guys in the NBA, but Stephen Curry is, like, on that top pantheon now. And, I had that kind of in my notes, and there's been some talk about that lately. Like, is he a top 10 all-time guy now? I mean, it's certainly a discussion I was hearing, like, argument of him kind of right around that, like, Kobe, Tim Duncan, Hakeem range of players. And I think there's pretty credible arguments in his favor. And this felt like kind of again, like, I think anyone questioning his legacy going into this was dumb. But if, people will point to he hadn't won finals MVP. Well, I mean, he was just like, this series was a good reminder of just how good he is, how impactful he is. And like I said, he was just kind of on a higher level from anyone else, even in those finals, even with all the amazing talent on the floor. Like, he stood out, his greatness, and that was just an all-time performance by an all-time player. And, like I keep saying, you almost just have to tip your hat. Like, I'm not sure there's a lot more the Celtics could have done from a defensive standpoint. And Curry's just that good.
The narrative, I think, shifted, as recently as probably early this year, shifted from is Curry still one of the elite players in the NBA to is he one of the, best players of all time, like you said. I mean, there were times, obviously the last couple of years when they missed the playoffs, people questioned him. And, If maybe he was not washed up, but deep into the back nine or something, and now he proved he's still can hang with anyone. I mean, he was the best player on a championship team, and I mean that's kind of what defines greatness.
And I think that's a good way to sum up what you said. I don't think it was that anyone was saying he's like washed up or done for, but I think there was legitimate questions of, with all the injuries he'd been through, his age, on all that, if he could be the best player on the championship team again. And he just did it.
you could say, this finals was like one of the best, as good as he's ever looked, really. I mean, he was
on both ends, like you said. It's not the shooting is the eye-catching thing that everyone's going to point to, and because it's the shooting that's been his trademark and made him who he is and really changed the league and the sport. But you look at everything he does out there. I mean, even in his bad games, he changes everything just with his gravity on the floor, and the way he moves without the ball and how unselfish he is opens up everything they do. And it's crazy. Like, even now, it's like it feels like he almost still doesn't get enough credit for how much he dominates a game in like almost subtle ways. It's like in the late 2000s or the early 2000s where you had like the dominance of Shaq down low. And that was more of like a very in-your-face physical dominance. But Curry's almost like dominating the game that kind of way, like impact-wise, but just in a completely different way. And it's just incredible for a guy who, there were questions about if his size and frame and athleticism and all that was even sustainable for like an NBA career at all. And for him now to be, where we're talking about him, and you look historically, and like, if you look at whatever hypothetical list of top 10, top 15 guys, like there's really nobody on that list who's anywhere near his size. Like the shortest guy who ever gets mentioned in that discussion is probably like MJ at 6'6".
Yeah.
And Curry's what, 6'3", and not that.
Maybe Isaiah Thomas, but I don't think.
But I don't think
in that top. He's not in that top 10, but
but he's probably the next guy. But I mean, there just aren't really guys that small who have done what he's done. And like I said, for him to be in that discussion with guys like Kobe and Shaq and Duncan, it's incredible, and it's well deserved.
Yeah, and especially in today's game, I mean, there's not a lot of teams whose best player is a point guard anymore that's goes deep into the playoffs. I mean, it's all in a league that's all about wings. It's getting harder and harder to build your team around a point guard, or even like a guard for that matter.
Right.
So I mean, it makes it even more impressive. I mean,
and credit to him for becoming a complete point guard and really a good defender. I mean, that was always the thing, was kind of that, he's a liability on defense, and it's like, he's really not. I mean, he's not, he's not Marcus Smart switching on to like centers and all this, but he completely held his own. He's not some guy who is just,
can't abuse him.
You can't, you really can't. He works hard. He has good hands, good feet. He does what he can. He uses his size well. And, he was not like, there were definitely times where the Celtics attacked him, but, it's not like this Trae Young situation in Atlanta, for example, or something. And it's credit to how hard Curry's kind of worked and how much he focuses on that over his career, that he's become, at least like a passable to borderline good defender.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I think we've pretty much, hit on, exhausted, the Curry praise, but I mean, it's hard to not like the guy, I think, ultimately, and not respect him. And
for sure. No, I mean, it sucks when he's doing it against your team. And
of course, it's very frustrating to play against him.
As just a basketball fan, like you said, it's hard not to appreciate the greatness as you're watching it happen.
Yep, exactly. So, good for him. Good for the Warriors. I mean, it's a fun team.
Well, it is, and I mean, to give some credit to the rest of the team too. Like I said, it's it all starts with Curry, but you look at his supporting cast. I mean, Andrew Wiggins,
awesome,
unbelievable series, and like he did exactly what they wanted on both ends. He was amazing on defense on Tatum, and really good on offense. Like I'd say he was pretty clearly their number 2 guy and second best player in this series, which like if you not that long ago, if you had said Andrew Wiggins would be the second best player on a title team, I think, you would have got laughed out of the room. And again, credit to the Warriors and credit to him for, kind of carving out that role for himself. And they've just maximized like what he's good at and gotten him to buy in and focus. And again, to look at that guy a few years ago and think that he'd be a defensive stopper in the finals, like getting the best arguably of Tatum a one-on-one, and then also like leading the team in rebounds is, the knock on this guy's whole career was basically he's just like a chucker.
Yeah.
And it's like he's done all those other things that he never did, and it's all come together to, result in this brilliant performance. And then, we kind of questioned if Draymond and Clay could still do it, but they just like were rock solid. I mean, Draymond, especially those last few games, his defense he was a total difference maker. And in the last game, he's even knocking down jump shots at that point. Clay held up way better than I thought he would on that ankle. Like his defense was very, very solid, and he did enough on offense. He found his spots. He gave them that points and kind of secondary scoring they needed, and
hit some big shots.
Yeah, he had some very big shots, exactly. And they got huge contributions then off the bench from some of those role players. Gary Payton was like maybe the X factor in the whole series. I mean, he was incredible not only with his defense, but he gave them a huge scoring punch off the bench, which I didn't see that coming. Otto Porter felt like was hitting daggers every single game. Like he'd come up with a big shot.
Felt like he hit every three he took.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, this all kind of goes back to what we started with Golden State, just having that like championship pedigree, and not necessarily in some of these guys specifically, but it's it starts at the top. And when you look at Steph, Clay, Draymond, and Kerr, that like they exude that confidence and that they know what it takes, and it trickles down to the rest of the roster, where you could say one of the biggest things with the Celtics was that the role players disappeared, especially those last few games, and the bench completely, whereas Golden State, it was like everyone stepped up. And I mean, also credit to Kerr, because it seemed like he was kind of like one adjustment ahead. No matter what we were doing, he kind of had a reverse adjustment. And it seemed like he pushed all the right buttons, pulled the right strings, and the right guys were out there at the right times, and pretty much everything he did worked out. So I mean, again, I don't want to just make this a Golden State love fest, but at the end of the day, like they kind of just did everything almost as well as they can, and that's why they won.
Yeah, you do have to give Kerr some respect too, because
thought he did a great job.
There was a long time where people were saying like he's just kind of a figurehead or whatever. He's just there like a manager, and I think he proved that he's a good coach. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it was like he had Curry, Clay, Draymond. Then you add Durant, and that's like right. Is he a good coach, or is he just have unreal talent?
Like, what does he even really have to do?
Yeah, and it was kind of the same thing with Spoelstra. I mean, nobody knew if he was a good coach until he didn't have
Tyronn Lue back in the day.
Yeah, and Lue. I mean, it's unfortunate. You don't get credit until you make a crappy team, exceed expectations. But
for sure.
So good for him too. I mean, it's good for it's their good team. They deserve to win.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, everything other than it being against the Celtics is like a great feel-good story.
Yeah.
And I think good for the league too. We're a team that, they won with basically like actual team balance and longevity, and like the opposite of what's been the recent trend. Like, we kind of talked about this last time. I don't want to go too much into it, but where everyone was saying like they have to trade Wiggins and Wiseman and Kuminga and all these picks and stuff, and like they have to go get another star. They have to go get another star, and they stayed the course. And we're like, we like our depth, we like our balance, and we think the team works and fits, and it did. And again, that's like I think good for the league, and kind of hopefully similar to what the Celtics are trying to build in Boston with we keep saying like built not bought, and which is funny because the Warriors payroll is like $350 million, but at the same time, I mean, it's basically paying their own guys, and so it's like I said, I think it's admirable, and it's what every probably fan would love their team to do. Like that's what everyone wants, is draft your own guys,
that's
build your own team from the.
It's the most sustainable, obviously, longevity wise and whatever. But one more thing too about Golden State, they, the whole narrative all playoffs for the Celtics was, we beat ourselves with turnovers. We can't be beaten. We just beat ourselves or whatever. And that even seemed like the case after, the first couple losses to Golden State. But I think it ended up, I think they ended up proving that, that they could beat us and we weren't, just beating ourselves by the end of it.
Yeah.
So,
no,
I mean,
that became clear by the end, like you said, those last few games. And again, I mean, a lot of it, like you said, as a Celtics fan, it's frustrating to watch, but a lot of that is Golden State and how they're playing on defense and all the other stuff that's happening. Like, I mean, Tatum's driving into a crowd of good defenders every time, and Brown, and like, they just did a really good job. And yeah, the Celtics need to be better and handle it better. And I think, they will. Like, hopefully this is a good learning experience. But to say that the Celtics just like choked or no-showed or laid an egg is, I think, doing a disservice to how Golden State made that happen. And, we talked again, I think both of us probably underestimated Golden State defensively and just how good their team defense was. And I thought, that really showed itself by the end of the series. Like, again, it was frustrating to watch, but it was also it wasn't like it was all just fluky stuff. A lot of it was like, this is what happens when you play a really good defense that doesn't make mistakes and is making us work this hard every single possession. Like,
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, in a way it was not refreshing, but like it was a little bit easier to swallow that, they beat us, that we got beat, as opposed to, we just kind of choked our way,
right.
To losing the finals. And I mean, obviously there was some plenty of choking that happened, but on our part, but I think we lost to a better team. So it's easier to swallow.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much how I feel. Like you said, we could have done better, but it wasn't like, we clearly should have won and just didn't show up. Like, I think, our effort and execution and all that was good. It was just, we just like didn't play well enough.
Yeah, exactly.
It sucks. But all right. So, I mean, having kind of given their fair due to the Warriors, now let's talk about the Celtics and where things went wrong for us. Like what sticks out at you from the finals from more of like a Celtics standpoint? Where do you think we kind of lost the plot? Do you think that we even did lose the plot? Or do you think that, again, it was just kind of, there wasn't much we could do by the end? I mean, what do you kind of blame most, I guess, from a Celtics standpoint? I don't want to say whose fault was it, because again, that makes it sound like this was like ours and we just gave it away. So it's more Warriors credit than Celtics fault. But in that sense, kind of what do you think were the most glaring issues for Boston in this series?
I mean, we don't even have to talk about turnovers anymore, because we've pretty much, hammered that as hard as we could.
Yeah.
And I mean, even towards, that was obviously the focus, game to game and throughout the whole playoffs, but it's not like we didn't get any better. It got worse, if anything. I mean, last 3 games, we had 16, 18, 23 turnovers. Mm-hmm. So it's like, even though we obviously were putting an emphasis on it, we couldn't stop turning the ball over. So I think that's number one, by a landslide, really. And then I'd say probably second to that was, I mean, I think it's gotta be Tatum. And he just didn't have a great series. It was partially, obviously, what Golden State did to slow him down. They did a great job on him. Even one-on-one defense and then team defense. And but at the same time, first team all NBA players and, greats and the elites, they still figure out a way to get it done. And I know, he affected the game in some ways. I mean, what was that, game 1? He had 13 assists or whatever it was, but had a tough time scoring. And so there were some highlights for him, but
sure,
I think there had to be.
Most of the struggling is the standard we're holding him to. It's like, I mean,
Right.
he's still at 22 points a game and whatever amount of assists.
Right.
I think seven plus assists. So yeah, like you said, I mean, he was still obviously played well and made a positive impact, but we've come to expect more from him.
Yeah, he underachieved from what he is, but I think, we're as good as we are because he's as good as he is.
Absolutely.
So, if we want to be a championship team, I think he's going to have to be that player for at least, most of the finals, or, a good chunk of it. But I think there's probably something more there as far as injuries. I mean, he was it seemed like fourth quarter he was out of gas, which, I don't know where to put the blame on that, or, if there is anywhere to put the blame, or if he just wore himself out, from last summer to now. So, I mean, I am hoping maybe he takes a little bit of time to relax this summer. I wouldn't mind seeing him, hit the beach and, take it easy. So
yeah,
I don't know.
It's unfair to go back now and blame like, oh, he shouldn't have played the Olympics. He should have been resting. Because I think that was very clearly like helped him as a player.
Yeah, I don't think he shouldn't have done it, but I think this offseason, he should take. I mean, there isn't obviously. Well, there aren't any leagues this summer that he's going to be playing in for team.
No,
nothing that I'm missing. I mean, this isn't like a qualifying year for the next Olympics or something.
And I think he said as much that the main thing he needs is just rest at this point. So
yeah. And I do think, like I said, I do think there were some injuries. I mean, there was obviously the shoulder or whatever it was, and there are rumors that his knee was bothering or something. So I mean, it's easy to blame injuries if that was the case, but I mean, it kind of seems realistic. I mean, you have a guy that's beat up, and a lot of players are beat up at this point in the season, but he can, fight through it for the first 3 quarters, and then by fourth quarter, he's exhausted and can't maybe fight through those injuries as well. So, I'm not blaming on injuries, but I think that's probably a component. But he needs to be better, I think, ultimately, if we're gonna win, win the championship.
Yeah, I think I think you got to start there, and that's that's what comes with being a superstar and being the best player on a team and leading your team to the finals, is that that expectation's there. So when he has a bad series for his standards, definitely, it's hard to win. I mean, that's look at what we just talked about what Curry did for Golden State, and it's the same way. I mean, not to probably the same extent that they rely on him more than we rely on Tatum, but Tatum is our guy, and if he's not playing well, it's hard to overcome that, obviously. So, I hate to see it. And like you said, that's what happens. That's kind of what comes with the territory when you're in the company that he's in now. So yeah, you get a lot of the credit when you win, and you have to take the blame when you lose. And you can't, like you said, I think there are valid excuses for him and for how he played. But at the end of the day, like, you look at the series, and that's an easy place to start, where our best player didn't play well. So, that's kind of that's not like it, but that's a lot of it. And I think everything you said is fair and holds true, that was definitely banged up. He was definitely tired, and we've talked about the minutes. You mentioned going back to last summer, but I mean, going all the way back to the bubble, the amount of minutes he's put on his body is just crazy. And you look at the amount of minutes he played this season and in these playoffs, even, like, it was, astronomically higher than any other player in the league. And I think all our guys were just so exhausted by the end, physical exhaustion, mental exhaustion, all of that. And it goes back to, that's what happens when you start the season, 18-21, and your bench can't close out 25-point leads. You got to win every game, and you got to do it at a high intensity and play heavy minutes. And I remember, those regular season games where we're up 30, and it's like, all right, Ime, maybe pull the starters out. We're up 30 in the fourth quarter. And, I'm not saying that's like what did us in. And in the moments, I don't think any of us trusted the bench. Like, we still had too much PTSD from blown leads. So We asked a lot of all our guys, and for the most part, they delivered. And I think, as evidenced by Tatum more than anyone else, I think they kind of hit a wall. And it felt like it in kind of between games 5 and 6. You could kind of see it in those last few games where that fight back that we've come so used to, it was like they just had nothing else left in the tank. And again, I mean, that's what happens with young teams. That's the first time they've gone on a run like this. And like I said, I think we'll all learn from this, and Tatum especially. I think, again, this will be a learning experience, and go through the list of players and age 24 and younger who have been on a championship team or even a championship contending team, and these struggles are pretty normal. I mean, everyone was showing the side-by-side combo of his first finals versus LeBron's first finals when I think he was 24 and they got, dominated by the Spurs, but it was kind of similar. Like, he really struggled, and I think that's normal. You get to this level, and I don't know. I guess, are you like concerned at all about Tatum's finals? I mean, I don't want to see that, but like, I don't view him any differently than I did before this run. As like, this is just kind of a natural bump in the road and kind of growing pains along the path to elite NBA superstardom. And like, it sucks in the moment, but I feel like he will genuinely learn from this, get better, and God willing, we're back in the finals again soon, and I think we'll see a much better version of Jason Tatum.
Yeah. No, I'm not concerned at this point.
All right. I mean, it seemed like there was some concern, not from you specifically, but the amount of kind of
plenty
chatter you heard around even the national media questioning, like, wow, did we overrate Tatum? And no, I mean, I don't think it's that at all. I think, again, you're asking a 24-year-old to carry the burden he's carried, and he got us within 2 games of winning it all. And even playing that poorly, like, still, very nearly still won a title.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can't, it's obviously not a trend because it hasn't happened long enough, or, enough times. And I mean, his history in the playoffs is good. And his recent history in the finals is not great, but it was his first time. And all the reasons we said before why he may have struggled or whatever. I mean, it's not like it's to be expected, but it's understandable for all, like everything you said. It's track record for people in his situation, players in his situation. So I won't be worried unless it happens again, I guess. Or if all of a sudden, he starts struggling in the playoffs, not finals. I mean, I don't see that happening. So I'm not going to worry about it until there's real concern.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair and balanced way to look at it. Like you said, I mean, he's earned the benefit of the doubt to me, and like I said, this is just kind of like normal growing pains. Like I said, you hate to see it, but kind of just is what it is, and that's what people have to go through. And I think he'll step back and look at the way Golden State defended him, how they attacked him, and how it led to him obviously missing a ton of shots around the rim. And it kind of inside the arc, his 2-point shooting percentage was terrible. And he turned the ball over too much. And I think those are the things that he can look at and say, no matter how banged up or tired or what, I need to take care of the ball better, which he definitely does. Probably needs to stop interacting, I'll say, with the officials, letting kind of the way the game's called affect him. And it seemed like too many times he's going in and either driving like only with the intent of drawing a foul, like a lot of flailing and a lot of kind of playing too much into that game, whereas I want him to just go up and finish and just go up strong and dunk the ball, or or stop and take a pull-up. Like there's just a lot of things I think he can do better and that he's capable of doing better, and I'm confident that he will do better. But I think a lot of the biggest warts in his game were pretty visible in these finals, which again, credit to Golden State and that stage. And that's what it takes when you're on the biggest stage. Teams are going to go after every possible weakness. And again, he's got to get better in those areas. And that's really kind of the final for him, I think, in being, considered right there at the top of this league. All that stuff.
Those are things that he kind of struggled with early in his career. Even like probably as recently as last year, going to the hoop and looking for the foul, or trying to get contact as opposed to going strong. And then he kind of turned that
to avoid contact. I mean, there was a couple of those plays where he went up and it was like, there wasn't even like real contact, and it was like he was falling away and just throwing up like almost a circus shot, and then looking at the refs, and it's like there wasn't even really that much contact.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, he started, I think, during our run, during the regular season, I think it's when he really started, going at bodies and going to the rim and trying to score, not trying to get fouled. And that makes a big difference. I mean, you look at, a lot of the great players, they're not going to, they're not going and trying to draw the foul anymore. Mm-hmm. They're going and they're trying to score. And if they get fouled, then they get fouled. So I think that's kind of what the best players are doing at this point.
And it'd be one thing if he was playing like that and we looked at the box score and he's got 16 free throw attempts, but like that wasn't the case at all. And like I said, it was like he was too... It's like the officiating was just too in his head, whether it was trying to avoid contact or trying too hard to draw contact. It's not what he needed. And it was like he needs to just kind of bury this from his head and just play.
Yeah.
Which, sounds overly simple, but I think that's kind of like the general sentiment of what we wanted to see from him. And we just never really saw it.
Yeah. I think that this can only be positive, I think, long term for him as far as development, the experience, and then looking and seeing these things and what he can do to improve. And I mean, he's been good about working on his game and working on his weaknesses his whole career. So I don't think there's reason to believe he'll do it again this year. It's not like there was some fatal flaw exposed.
No.
Yeah. So it's like if there are cases where that happens and it's like, oh wow, maybe this guy isn't, can't do it in this situation or whatever. And it's obviously not the case because he's proven he can do it. He just didn't do it. So
exactly. From there, I mean, if you look kind of up and down, I think Al was similarly exhausted. He obviously, gave one of his best efforts in Game 6 in the losing cause. I think he had 19 and 15, and he left it all out there, which, that's what you expect of the big guy. I mean, Rob also obviously gutted through whatever all his ailments are, and I thought he really, Rob was one of maybe our bright spot in those last few losses. It seemed like he was really figuring out and was, making a huge impact. So, hopefully really positive Rob stuff going forward. You have to feel good about Rob and Al. Both of those guys, I think you feel good about. I think kind of like we said about Tatum, they just were really exhausted. And that's something that I think, in the future, who knows? If I don't want to say we wasted that Al performance, but I don't know with his age, it's hard to bank on that kind of a playoff run by a 36-year-old guy going forward. He's obviously kept himself in good shape. And I think that, there's no reason to think he's going to suddenly fall off a cliff, but it'd be great to get him, a lighter workload next year. I hope would pay dividends in the playoffs. But I thought Rob and Al, hard to ask for much more out of them in these finals. I thought Jalen, similar turnover issues that we talked about. And again, I think part of that is at this point, how much we're asking him to do and things that are things that he's gone a lot better at over the years, but things that are still like a little bit outside of his comfort range. But I mean, he's still, what, he had 34 points in that closeout game. Like, Jalen was leaving it all out there. I thought he played well. I thought, Marcus, for the most part too, like, really, played well, and those guys showed up. So to me, like, the next issue was really the bench. And that's something that I guess, we talked about how Steve Kerr pushed all the right buttons and everyone who came in kind of gave them something different and gave them good stuff. For the Celtics, I mean, that first game where, like, White and Pritchard were so critical. And then after that, it was like, we got absolutely nothing. I mean, especially those last two games, but in the finals, it was like part of the reason that these guys we keep talking about were so exhausted is because it was like Ime just couldn't take him out. There was just nothing. I mean, Grant, he had 27 in Game 7 against Milwaukee. Like, did he have 27 points combined the next two series? It seemed like his offense just disappeared. I mean, his three-point shooting, it was like he wasn't even getting three-point shots, which seems crazy. So, I mean, I don't think Grant played, like, bad, but, I mean, we had come to, like, somewhat bank on his scoring punch, and there was just no scoring. And, again, he wasn't even shooting. Pritchard, same thing. Like, I don't think Pritchard played poorly, but, tough time to go ice cold. Just couldn't give us anything, where it seemed like that had become like kind of really reliable part of our bench offense, and it wasn't there at all. And then, I mean, the same with Derek White, who I think for the most part, he did everything well, but on offense, the shot completely abandoned him. And then it seemed like he got a little bit scared to shoot too, and wasn't taking it. And I mean, that's how you end up with, what did our bench score? Like 4 points combined, I think, before, garbage time or whatever. And like, you're just getting nothing from all those guys who had become pretty big contributors. And I just, as good as our starters and our stars are, that they're not going to be able to do it without the role players. And that just became a glaring issue. And like I said, especially those last two games where we're getting nothing from those guys. And I think it's all a trickle-down effect, where we talked about how, Jalen and Jason are exhausted in the fourth quarter. And it's because Ime can't even get them a rest because no one else is really giving us anything. And that can be the game. You look at that last game, it was like Marcus got the two quick fouls. They took Marcus out. They took Rob out. The bench went in, and Golden State went on a 21 zip run, I think. I mean, the game was basically over. Like, that was basically the game when the first time Ime went to the bench. We were up. I mean, we were winning 14-2. We were still winning when Marcus came out. And then they just went on that giant run, and that was basically the game. We never, we were down, made some runs, but like that, if you point back to like where the game was lost, it was when the bench came in, and there was, I think at half we were down by 15 points at halftime, and Smart was a +3 in 19 minutes.
Yeah.
So he sat for 5 minutes of a half, and we lost those minutes by 18 points. And again, it's like, White and Pritchard, they should be better than that. So it's kind of disappointing to see. And again, like, I don't know if you think this is more of like an eyes are open to more of a long-term problem, or again, if this is just kind of the nature of role players and young, inexperienced guys in their first NBA finals going against the class of the league. But either way, it was a problem.
Yeah, the bench was next on my list for the blame pie, I guess. And earlier in the playoffs, they almost, it started seeming like the bench was, almost a strength. The way Grant was playing,
for
the
sure.
way, Derek White obviously also.
White, especially. I mean, it was almost like we had 7 starters. Like, there were games where, Grant was one of our best players, and White too. Like, it kind of was seeming like there, a lot of what we talked about was working for Kerr. That's kind of how Ime had been in previous rounds with the Celtics. And like I said, it was like our top 7 guys were all almost starters in their own way.
Yeah. And, so I mean, it looked like we had the depth, and I think, what ended up happening was that we realized that Grant and Derek White are good players, but they played above their head maybe in those first few rounds, which you need from your depth guys at some point if you want to make a run. I mean, you need,
But at the same time, like, I'm still not sure that is the takeaway. Like, I kind of, again, like, I'm not sure I would say those guys, like, got exposed.
No.
Like, I don't know. I still think Derek White, like, he's good enough to hold up out there. It wasn't like we put him in and was like, oh my God, like, Derek White doesn't belong on the floor.
No.
I mean, he was
I
great
don't
on
think
defense and in other ways, too. It was really, with White, I mean, it's so much of it was just the shooting and scoring, just completely abandoned him.
No, I don't think I'm not saying like they stink or anything. I'm saying that they played about as good as they could have in the first few rounds. And then we got to the finals, and for whatever reason, they, it's not like how they were in the finals was who they really are, but I think it was more of like water finding its level, and they were, at the high in the first few rounds, and then they kind of hit a low in the finals. So
I think it was mostly just a bad time for a cold streak, and they kind of all went cold at once. And then I think some of the confidence started to waver, and you just can't have that.
Yeah, and I mean, as good well as they played, and as good as we think they are, maybe they're just not the high end bench players that they seemed like they were in the first.
That's fair. And I mean, Grant still very young. Pritchard obviously and Grant are still very young. This was their first like real playoff experiences in minutes, and I think overall you got to be happy with what they did. And there's, like we've kind of said about Tatum and Brown, like, we should expect, I think, similar growth and maturity going forward from those guys. Not that they're going to be superstar players, but I think, we expect those guys to keep getting better, and as they get older to be, I would think not like key cogs on the team, but guys who are at least hoping will be good bench players. So same thing, I think, young, inexperienced, and it showed. And I think they'll all learn from this, hopefully, and get better and probably be around for a while, and guys that we're going to need to rely on in the future.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get to, off season and whatnot, and you think I would be fine with them sticking around long term. But I think it's clear we need to add some, a little bit more depth to the bench, and ideally some more more of a veteran presence off the bench, which I think I think that's important. Having that mix, like you saw with Golden State, they have a solid mix of veterans and youth coming off the bench, and that seems to be the recipe, of how to build a bench in the for contenders.
I mean, especially in those last few games, it did feel like there was just kind of one missing piece. And it's, when everything's kind of going poorly is when that's the most glaring. But
right, exactly. So, it was we came up just short, but when you come up short, you're gonna point out the weaknesses and point out the areas for improvement, and that's probably what we're gonna do next, I assume.
I mean, I think I don't know. Do you have anything else really to say about the finals? I think it's like you got to take your medicine, swallow that pill, and at the end of the day, I can't let the way it ended kind of taint all the good feelings, good vibes, and good growth from the rest of the season. It's 29 teams don't win it all, and we were the closest one to winning it all without winning it all. So you could say, like, in a way that hurts the most, but I mean, not to keep going back and like excuse making or whatever, but I mean, going into the year, if anyone had told you the Celtics, with basically the team as currently, constructed, is with a rookie head coach and the two top players, 25 and under, are going to make the finals and lose in 6 games to the Warriors, like, I'm pretty sure we both would have signed up for that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's pretty much all I have for, looking back at the playoffs and finals. I mean, the only other thing would maybe be that I was pretty impressed with Jalen overall. And I know he had some ups and downs, and obviously he needs to work on, maybe his handling and work on the turnovers and whatnot. So he's proven he improves his game pretty much every offseason. I'm sure that's probably something he'll be looking at. So, but overall, I think he kind of showed that he deserves to be taken seriously, and maybe he's in that upper echelon, not like top 10, but I think he deserves to be considered one of the better players in the league. And he's clearly a all-star caliber player, and wasn't afraid of the moment, hit a lot of big shots, had a lot of great quarters, got us back into a lot of games. So obviously he has room for growth, as does everyone, but I was really impressed with his development, proud of how he played, and I'm excited to see if he's got another level.
For sure. And I mean, like you said, there's no reason to think otherwise, because it seems like every year he just gets better and better. And I think maybe people are kind of underselling how good Jalen was, because the things that were bad were so like glaring and bad looking that where it seems like he just goes through stretches where he can't dribble, losing the ball left and right, throwing it away, just some awful turnovers. But again, I mean, we can't let that overshadow all the other things he did really well. And again, we've talked about like the Celtics, everything they've done this year to kind of empower their stars, but it's like the amount of like playmaking and just offensive burden in general that Jalen took on this year and how well he's done with it is incredible. And yeah, we're going to see some bad stretches, but again, like we've always, before this year, there's been a Kemba, there's been a Kyrie and Isaiah Thomas. Like Jalen's never really been that guy to the point he was this year, where the amount we asked him to run the offense and all that stuff, it's like, again, it's unfair not to expect some growing pains. And when you go against these elite defenses, they're going to expose that. And they did. And I think it's very clear what Jalen needs to work on this offseason. But if he can improve that handle and kind of quick decisions and all that stuff, like sky's the limit.
Yep. So, like you said, this was first time in his career where he's been very clearly the number 2 scoring option.
Yeah.
And
I mean, in the finals, it seemed like he was our number 1 at times with how much Tatum was struggling. Like he was,
he was
really carrying a ton of scoring output, and obviously improved a hell of a lot as a playmaker. All those things, like we're making fun of his handle, but if you look at how far it's come since he's been in the league, like he's actually has a good handle now. I mean, it's not, you'd want it to be better for a guy who's going to have as high of a usage as he is and who has the ball that much. But again, like if you told me he'd be where he's at now with his handling and playmaking and all that stuff, like even 3-4 years ago, you're thrilled.
Yeah. And, it wasn't that long ago where, if he had 2 or 3, plays where he set up a teammate or whatever, or, had if he had 2 or 3 assists, you're like, oh, solid game for him, setting up other players. And now it's like, that's pretty much the floor. He's finding open guys. And I know assists aren't like the be all end all for, how you do, setting up your team and making other players better. But, I think he's proven to be a solid playmaker, and I think he clearly has, some room to grow there. So he'll work on his stuff, and, excited. It was a positive, very positive outlook for him throughout the whole playoffs, and even in the finals. A finals that looked gross at many times. He was a bright spot.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like you said, you kind of, if you step back and look away from the finals and look more as the Celtics and the season as a whole, I think these are really all bright spots. And I mean, so much of it's positive. And you think of where we were a year ago and kind of all the questions surrounding this team. I think, even despite losing and not playing our best in the finals, especially on offense, like you look at the season and you see, obviously everyone knows about the turnaround in the middle of the season and how they closed and then the run in the playoffs. But like, again, you just think of all those questions that were being asked. And now it's like, we've seen the Jays lead a team to a title as the clear guys. Like, I think that's with the Boston sports media, like there's always going to be talk of this and that. But I mean, I think for like barring something pretty miraculous, I think we've got our guy in Tatum. We've got his running mate in Brown. We've got, I don't want to say like our third star, but I think, Smart finally got the job and he won Defensive Player of the Year as the point guard and led us to the finals. Like, I think he's answered that question of like, can Smart do that? I think Rob, maybe there'll always be these health questions, but like, there's no doubt when healthy, he's our starting center and like a damn good one. And, Ime, now it's like, we've got our coach. We've got one of the bright young coaches in the league. It's just, again, it feels like this season, the Celtics answered so many questions. I mean, Brad is an executive too. He's got, the work's not done, but for first year, he knocked it out of the park with basically every single move. And it's like coming out of the season, it feels like basically everything we did is now set. And I mean, this team, the top 8 guys are all under contract for like at least, I think, 2 more years, if not more, for everyone. And, this team is young. This team is good. And I think it's all, I don't want to get too caught up in like, oh, we lost the finals, no big deal. We're young, we'll be back every year, because we've seen how that goes. And, OKC is the cautionary tale when they got there a little ahead of schedule, kind of similarly maybe to how the Celtics did this year. And people thought, Durant, Westbrook, Harden, that team will be back every year. Like,
yeah.
And then not so much, obviously. Yeah. So that's kind of the cautionary tale, and you can't take anything for granted, even if you feel like maybe we were ahead of schedule and getting to the finals, or I don't want to say lucky to be there, but like it was almost like a free opportunity. And, it still stings. Nothing's guaranteed. You make it to the finals, you lose. That's, like I said, you can't take it for granted. Who knows if they'll ever be back. But on paper, it's starting to look like this team's set up extremely well. And like I said, last offseason, there was all these questions about splitting up the Jays, and we got to get a third star, or we got to go and get this superstar. And people were talking about, trading Jalen for like Dame Lillard or Brad Beal and all this stuff. And I think now going into this offseason, it's like, okay, we've got our team, we've got our core, we've got, kind of almost everything in place, and we're legitimate title contenders. Obviously, like, we're where we want to be and in the right spot. And it's like, now is the time to strike. Now is when ownership needs to pay up, and we need to go into that luxury tax, as they said they will do for a contender. Well, it's like, okay, now we're a contender. Go ahead, Brad. Let's, polish things up. And it feels more than ever like now that just means hitting on the margins and finding a few more tweaks and a little more support. And there's no reason to think that the Celtics aren't, right there in the mix for the next few years, where, the East is, it's going to be tough. Like, the Bucks aren't going anywhere. Giannis isn't going anywhere. The Heat, we'll see. I'm sure Pat Riley, they're always up to something. They'll probably try to find a way to get another star in there somehow. Who knows what the hell is going on with the Nets, but as long as they've got Kevin Durant, you'd have to think they're going to be some way contenders. Philly obviously still has Embiid, Harden. So again, nothing is for certain. You can't take anything for granted, but overall, like a 15 out of 10 season. And it feels like all those things that we've been kind of wondering about now are like, we're settled in. We don't have to be asking those questions. It's like we've gotten past that level to now where we're on like the legit top tier contender level. And it's just, okay, what now do we need to do to take that next step?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to repeat a lot of what you just said pretty much, but I mean, my last couple things to kind of recap the season was, a lot of the same things you said. I mean, it seems obvious that, Ime is our franchise coach. He deserves to be there. He deserved the job. It was the right hire. So that's obviously great. And like you said, our core is locked in. We're young. Future's bright. Nothing's guaranteed, obviously, to, go back to that OKC point. It's, a lot, there are teams that make it there, great young players that make it there and never get back. So, obviously we're hoping that's not the case, but we were 2 wins away from an NBA title. If we didn't implode game 4, I think we probably win, the whole thing. But I mean, that's part of being a young, unexperienced team.
Right.
And I think this run can only help with our development. And you'd like to hope that we're going to be there. I mean, we proved that dominant defense in the regular season wasn't a fluke. Yeah. We had some bumps in the road, but we went.
That identity now, which we've been asking for years, and that's another question that's been answered. It's like who we are, and I mean, Udoka deserves so much credit for coming in and like changing the whole culture of the team, and all the things we asked for. Is like he's done it basically in half a season. He turned everything around, made us like a tough team that's extremely resilient and responded incredibly to all adversity, and like. Udoka, you got to give it's a players' league, and obviously the strides that like Tatum, Brown, Marcus, and all those guys made are a huge part of it. But it really seems like Udoka came in and led in the way that this team needed to be led, and what a home run hire that's looking like.
Yeah, and like you were saying about ownership, spending. I think part of getting ownership to spend is the team and the coach proving to the ownership that we're worth investing in, and we're good enough as constituted to get us over the edge with adding some players and spending into the luxury tax. And sometimes the players, the team has to convince the ownership that it's time to make that move and spend some extra.
I'd say they did that.
Yeah,
that's exactly what they did. I mean, that was pretty damn convincing. Where I think ownership has to look now and say, like, time to strike while the iron's hot.
Yep. So, I think it's mostly positive, and I think we have a bright future. So, let's go.
Let's indeed. So, all right. I mean, anything else? I think that kind of puts a bow on the season. Disappointing end, but overall, incredible season. It's hard to be much happier about what happened with this team, and nothing but optimism for the future.
Yeah. No, that's all I got.
All right. Well, then let's officially turn the page to the off season and get into some slot, So I guess, we kind of brushed on it as we were kind of describing what happened in the finals and this and that. But I guess let's, before we get into the nitty gritty, let's start with like in general, what are you looking at for the Celtics here in terms of, like I said, the top 8, even maybe 9 guys are all locked up. So like technically the Celtics don't have to do anything. I mean, obviously they don't have a first round pick tonight. We've got the 53rd pick. That could almost be nothing, like if they want it to be. And the Celtics can basically run it back with the team they had, which sounds boring. But again, you came that close to the title, and we keep talking about how all these guys are so young. And I think, you can make an argument that more than anything, again, it's internal growth is what's going to bring this team to the next level. And I think for the most part, that's pretty accurate, but I mean, that is an option to essentially run it back. They don't really need to change anything. That third star talk is always there, and there's already people saying, go for Beal or whoever it is. So I mean, that's I would say a less realistic option, but I guess something that will always. I think there's always going to be noise out there. And then, the other option is kind of, like I said, make moves on the margin. They've got still the $17-ish million traded player exception from Fournier. They've got a couple other smaller ones. They've got, I think, assuming they'll be in the tax, they'll have the taxpayer mid-level. And then, after tonight, they have all their picks going forward to play with. So, again, if ownership's willing to spend, they can put more money into this team. And that doesn't mean, going out and making a splash in free agency, but targeting role players who we think will fit to kind of just shore up the margins, like I said, and give us some more depth, some more options. So I guess, like I said, without naming specific players, what's kind of your biggest focus for this offseason? Like, what do you want to see the Celtics do the most?
So I think probably I don't want to put it in order. But I think for me, we've talked about this a few times where I think it looks like we're missing a piece or two offensively. And, part of the one of the things that plagued us the last few years has been getting stagnant on offense. And we definitely improved on that in the regular season. And for most of the playoffs, but we still, against good defenses, had struggle scoring at times. And especially against Golden State, we couldn't keep up with their runs. And I think that kind of shows that we're missing someone, like a third. We have people that can score, but I think we're missing another guy like we saw from Wiggins, where if Steph and Clay don't have it going, you could be like, hey, we need a bucket, and have someone that can consistently go, get a bucket, or you at least feel comfortable getting a bucket and taking pressure off of the Jays. And I'm not saying we need. That doesn't mean Bradley Beal, which I think everyone's kind of jumping to, saying that's the guy we need, or a player like that. But a score, some shooting, and beyond that, I think it's just veteran depth. Because we have we have decent depth, or it seemed to be early in the playoffs, but I think it proved in the finals that we need some guys that have been there, some veterans that know what they need to do. Not that the moment was too big for our guys on the bench, or young guys, but like you've said many times, having more good veteran players is never a bad thing.
Yeah.
Especially the deeper you get into the playoffs. So that's what it is for me. Some more veteran present off the bench, a little bit more depth, and then not an elite scorer, but someone, that next tier down, that's like, someone that's just, a bucket guy that's off the bench that you say, hey, can go on a run for you.
Carry the offense for 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think we're looking for, and I think that's definitely realistic and achievable for this offseason. So hopefully we make those kind of moves. But
yeah. I mean, I generally agree. I think that the Celtics kind of thought they were getting that guy with Derek White, and I think at times he looked like that guy. But yeah, I mean, obviously in the biggest moments his offense kind of deserted him. So, I think
Derek White kind of proved to be more of like an intangibles guy than.
Yeah. But I mean, on the Spurs, he was scoring 15 points a game. I mean,
yeah.
I think it was fair to think he could be that scorer off the bench. He just, like you said, I mean, I love the White trade, and I think overall, I mean,
I still do too.
I'm not sure we get to the finals without him, but yeah, I'm not sure if he's really that bench scoring punch is his best role. But again, give him a full off season with the team, and what have you. Maybe next year he is that guy.
I mean, if he can actually be a real consistent 3-point shooter, league average, it would make a huge difference. I mean, we saw how awesome he was when he was hitting threes. He was he looked amazing, and he, won us some games probably.
Absolutely.
Kept us in games at least. And I think it kind of goes back to having that, consistent scoring option / shooter that we can kind of rely on. Someone that's not necessarily as streaky as he was.
No, I'm with you. If he could get that 3-point shooting up, like he would kind of be the perfect guy.
Yeah.
And again, I think he's still a really good guy. I still love that move, and I think he's going to be a big part going forward. But yeah, I don't know if he can kind of fulfill that specific need. We'll see. I mean, I'm still hopeful. He's still young, like I said, and he's he joined the team in halfway through the year, more than that. So let's hope there's some more growth on that end, I guess. To me, so the other things I focus on, you mentioned shooting. I think that was a pretty glaring need that the Celtics, when they can space the floor, everything looks better on offense. And, with Grant, did a lot of that, but again, kind of disappeared in the finals. Same with Pritchard. Two guys who I think will get better, but I think, one more guy to come in who can just shoot the hell out of the ball and someone that the defense will really respect and will kind of change the way that they guard, especially the Jays. So someone who's at least, I don't want to say necessarily like a sniper, but someone like that. Ideally, I want another wing guy who can kind of play interchangeably with either of the Jays out there potentially if we want to run like three wings, or can at least come in and give them rest. I mean, again, so much of this we keep talking about is just keeping those guys fresh. So we didn't really have another good true like wing option this year. So I think that's key. However we do that, ideally one who can shoot and defend, which is like every team in the league wants that. There just aren't that many of those guys, obviously. The name kind of is getting these versatile wings who can shoot and play defense. So I'm going to hit you with a bunch of names in a minute of guys who might be able to be that. But that's, to me, kind of the number one thing we need. Beyond that, I think we could maybe use another, like, veteran backup point guard, someone who could potentially play alongside Smart, White, others at times, but could come in and really run the offense. Like, I don't think we need to go, like, get, like, a star point guard. I think that's kind of been put to bed. But just another reliable ball handler off the bench would be great. And then I'd love to get one more big for the rotation just to really give Al, especially time off, and Rob too. The more we can keep those minutes down and keep those guys fresh for the postseason is huge. I mean, Tyson Grant will do some stuff, but if there's kind of like a cheap big guy out there we can get, or maybe that's what we do in the draft tonight, that'd be great. But I mean, those are kind of the three things that I think we need in terms of like what type of guys it's going to take. So in that order, kind of a wing who can give you a lot of good minutes and is versatile, ideally a shooter, and then one more ball handler and one more big. And I think that, we'd be pretty set. And I'm not looking for stars, so to speak. These are kind of just like holes we can patch up. And I think that would, really bring us to the next level. And, kind of, I don't know if it's fair to call it the elephant in the room, but how much is kind of this whole, every issue we're talking about, how much would that kind of be solved with Aaron Nesmith kind of finally taking that jump and just being like what he's supposed to be?
Yeah. No,
I mean, he's really the idea of what Nesmith can be if he puts it all together is really like exactly the player we need.
Yeah, that would be nice. And
he's still young. I mean, again, it's not like I'm not giving up on him. Hopefully that he will become the guy. But I mean, if he could shoot close to 40% and like just kind of eliminate the mental mistakes and all that, he's shown enough that he would really be like that ideal bench wing I'm talking about.
Yeah, and obviously it's too soon to give up on him, but it doesn't look good.
It could look better.
I think for him, I feel like he's probably a better. He's going to end up being a better trade chip for us than being someone that's going to be part of the future. And not that his value's high, but I could definitely see him being appealing to a young team that wants to, ready to move on from a veteran and, sliding him into a deal where they think, they've seen something in him, or they think, he's worth investing a little bit of time into. And I think he's more valuable to us in a trade than hoping he turns into, that player that we think he could be. And yeah,
Interesting.
and I don't know. Like I was saying, his value's not high, but I think the risk. I think the risk outweighs the reward as far as keeping him on, trying to develop him when he still has. There's still hope that he could end up being a solid NBA player, and if next year, even if he has one more year like this, I think people are staying away.
I mean, if he can't crack the rotation next year, he basically has no value.
Right. So I think.
But again, I don't know that he even has value. Like, do you think he has any trade value around the league? Like, I kind of think. So yeah, my basic thoughts on Nesmith are that I just don't know that there's any value in trading him right now, unless he's just a sweetener in a deal for like a no-brainer upgrade kind of guy. If he can be a piece in a deal like that, fine. But I still kind of think the best case and the most likely case, at least in a good way, is that we just stick with him, give him another offseason, and that he cracks the rotation next year. Like that, to me, seems like the most likely way that he'll contribute. I mean, I guess I get what you're saying, and it seems like if we're gonna make a move, he's probably like the only player we have who could be considered like a young asset that a team might want, which I mean, again, would kind of be a leap of faith to think that any team would want him. Well, I mean, to give up anything real for him. Yeah, so I don't know. I kind of think it's a case where his value is higher to us than anyone else, and we really just need to hope that one more year, and next year he's ready to contribute in a more meaningful way. And hopefully he is.
Yeah, the Romeo Langford and a Derek White trade.
Yeah, but was that like? I don't even know that.
That was more because of the first round pick, obviously.
Right, the pick and the swap, and then Richardson for the money, and Langford was almost like it almost seemed like we were just like dumping him. Like I don't.
Yeah, but I mean, I think like that
he was even considered like moving the needle at all in that deal. Like I don't think the deal was on the table, and the Spurs were like, we need more. Like give us Langford. Like I don't know, maybe.
Whatever it is, that's and I mean, it's like for a young rebuilding team that has a contract they're trying to get rid of.
Yeah, you could be worth it.
We could take that contract, and he could be used as I don't know, a chip that they're like, well, let's take him back. He's not making a lot of money. He's under contract. Let's see if we can, fix his shot, whatever. I think he has some value there. Not like,
well, yeah. I mean, he's got more
young asset, but
right.
I would rather make a move like that than keep him. Exactly worked out for us. Hoping that's the case for him for the last few years, and it just never panned out. So I mean, taking that, hoping he turns into a piece and then turning into nothing, I think is more risky than moving him for a fringe guy. That can contribute to.
I guess I think the one thing I'd say about that is with Nesmith, like we've largely seen it, and so much like if he could just get the shot to what we thought it would be, he'd be perfect. Like I think you could live with everything else if he was just knocking down open corner threes.
Yeah,
like that's all it takes. And I mean, and look at the leap in his third year that like Grant Williams took this year. If Nesmith can just take that kind of leap, which like is it was a great leap by Grant, but I don't know. I think we've seen enough that unless you think that shot is just like broken and this is just who he is as a shooter, which would like suck, but if he can just
gross looking, I'm not gonna lie. It's not like he has a beautiful stroke. And it's not falling.
Yeah. And I'm not saying he's going to turn into an absolute sniper, but again, he brings enough to the table with his defense, his effort, his hustle.
Yeah.
I mean, his best highlights of his career have been like chase down blocks or plays where he's like diving into the crowd or dunking, like
downs.
Yeah, like so again. I mean, when I talk about like versatility on the wing, he's that. He can play kind of big, he can play kind of small. He's got a ton of athleticism, and he's fast and all that. Yeah, pretty good size. Like it's really just the shot. If he's went up, sat in the corner, and could shoot well enough that defenses would have to respect him, that would be like it. He would, like I said at the start, he's kind of would be like the perfect role player for this team.
If there's a deal, I mean, obviously, if there's the right deal, then
right? And
but
like you said, if the right deal's out there and a team's offering a good enough player, and that's what they want, I'm not saying like you're like, no, we can't move him. Like if the deal's there, obviously take it. And it's again, he's kind of that guy because we just talked about like we've got our guys who play and are good and like an important part of the team, and then we've kind of got like Neesmith and Tice, who are in that middle ground where like they're not just like bench scrubs. They can play. And with Tice, I mean, obviously he is what he is at this point. Neesmith is the one guy I think on the whole roster who isn't really part of the rotation, but there's still like upside there, I guess. Because after him, the rest of the guys, there's you're not trading like Kornet or Nick Stauskas for anyone.
Yeah, and I think his value is like he could be that guy who's a young a couple seconds gets you
right. Yeah. Sure.
Fournier, something like
yeah. Maybe.
About with in the past.
Yeah, if that deal's there, obviously you take it because at the end of the day, we just need good players. Ideally, it's the young kid that we drafted, but if it's not, it's not. So we just you're right. I mean, if the deal's there, you take the deal. You don't hesitate. But
I could see him being a bad team in a deal like that.
Maybe, but I also think again, where I just kind of said the way that this season started for Boston put us in a position where we were basically playing for our lives for half the season, and like Neesmith didn't really get a fair chance to develop. And part of me wonders if now that like we've kind of established that we are a good team, and maybe we don't want to run the Jays into the ground. Maybe we just kind of let Neesmith go out there and learn in the regular season, and just say like, listen, you're going to play 25 minutes a game, and we're not going to yank your minutes around. Like that's your role. You're our first wing guy off the bench, and you're going to play 20 whatever minutes, and we're going to see how it goes. And then we're just live with that because we, the rest of our team's good, and we should be able to live with that. Like again, it's not like he's some total liability on the floor. So I think maybe it's time year 3, and we say you're just going to play, and if it's a disaster, then it's a disaster. But again, I think like the rest of the team is good enough, and it's not like he's a good defender. So he, at the very least, he should be able to keep us afloat. And if that's, he plays that role and he's still just an awful shooter, we realize, okay, this, unfortunately just isn't the guy we hoped it was. But like, I'd be kind of okay going into the year with him being like a real player, even if you could say maybe he hasn't like proved it. But I just think where the rest of the team is at, like it's worth that risk for us, and he's worth investing that playing time in.
Yeah. No, I mean, I could see that obviously happening. It can go obviously either way, but
there's been a lot of Neesmith talk.
Yeah.
Heavy Neesmith talk. I think so too. But I mean, that would be nice. It's not. Sure. I guess it's not something we can bank on, but I think it's still. I'm not giving up on it either.
Yeah. No,
and then we've obviously got our boys Yam Madar and Jawan Bagarin, who are stashed overseas, and I'm not same thing. Like I'm not banking on anything from them, but at the same time, like they're real guys. And we've won. Basically, you have Naismith and those two out of those 3. If one of those guys can be a decent bench player, like that solves so many of our problems. And maybe you could say all of them are like kind of a long shot, but again, if one of those guys hits and is ready to give us minutes, that's huge. Or even shows enough to become an asset. Like again, maybe if one of those guys comes over and has a great summer league or a few good games, then suddenly like Neesmith, Bagarin, and a pick is suddenly maybe like actually an appealing package.
Yeah. Yeah, I think worth investing in. We're going to have,
Yeah.
veterans that want to play here now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Over into that, that team that's willing to move.
Yeah. For
I
win
think,
now. Yeah, we're ready for a win now move.
So, if there are win now moves, let's go for it. I'm not, I'm not trying to hold on to these guys.
For sure. I guess again, it's just what can what is a package centered around Neesmith actually getting
Right.
you? And is it better than just whatever Neesmith can turn out to be? I guess is what you got to weigh there, and we don't know. It's a fair question, but I mean, again, I think that a good Neesmith is kind of the biggest need to me, a guy who fills that role, followed by, again, another bench big and another bench ball handler. And so much of this is just keeping our guys fresh. Like I said, just stealing minutes in the regular season, letting, Horford get a game off all the time and not worrying that, this year it was like, and his freedom that meant he was playing heavy minutes. And that's just a disaster. And it's part of why our record was so bad. So it's like, if we have a solid guy, another guy off the bench who, again, maybe that's someone we can snag late in the draft tonight. Maybe it's a free agent. I mean, bigs are pretty easy to find and pretty cheap. So that, to me, I'm not worried. I think the Celtics will be fine finding another big guy. I think ball handling wise, too. I think they can get a veteran point guard, hopefully, to, kind of like what the idea was with Schroeder, but someone who hopefully, fits a little better just stylistically. But, that kind of player, I guess.
Yeah.
And then
I think
a wing.
Schroeder profiles as exactly what we kind of need, that scoring, ball handling six man.
Right.
Someone that will get you a bucket and can get hot. Preferably maybe someone who's a little bit more of a playmaker, I guess. I mean, he's,
Yeah.
But that's someone that fills. So we try again.
White and Pritchard filled that role, kind of.
Yeah.
But, I still think that, I don't think we need, a Jamal Crawford or someone to suddenly come in and be, a huge, thing. I think, again, I keep saying, internal growth is going to be the key, and just small growth by our main guys more than anything. And like I said, so much of the depth to me isn't even necessarily, someone who's going to be in our closing unit in the playoffs. I think that our crunch time guys, like I said, with some internal growth and stuff, are good enough. It's more about keeping those guys fresh and being able to, give Tatum or Brown a night off in the regular season without knowing that you're going to lose that game. And these guys, they played so many minutes. We need just reliable backups. Like I said, even if they're guys who you may not trust in a playoff game, that's fine. If they can help you win, they can help you survive 10 games in the regular season that, one of our starters can take the night off. That's huge.
Yeah. I think something that has to be considered too. Al was awesome, but I don't think we can bank on Al being.
Right. Yeah.
I think we definitely need some, reassurance or someone behind him that we can.
I think a smaller workload for Al going forward would be best for him and for the team. And I said, that's kind of why I'm saying we need another big just to eat innings. It's almost like a fifth starter in baseball. It's we just need someone to chew up some innings so that when we do get to the playoffs, we can get something close to this version of Al for, not relying on him for 40 minutes a night like we were in some of these games, especially when Rob was hurt. I mean, you think of how much he was doing in those first couple of series, and it's a credit to Al. He was amazing, but like you said, with the guy's 36 now, I'm just not sure how many more runs like that he's going to have in it.
Yep. So same team might not be.
It might.
I think what.
For sure. When I said run it back, I meant they'll obviously add some pieces. I just think there's not going to be maybe major shakeups. Like I could see us having the same starting lineup. Like I could see our top 8 still kind of being our top 8 and just getting like a much better 9 and 10. And that would make the whole team a lot better. And I think, again, we're like, yeah, Al's probably going to fade a little bit. You would think he's going to start to regress. But like the other two bigs who play, Rob and Grant Williams, should keep getting better, like you would think. So, I mean, Al's like really the only guy on the entire team who plays who you'd think is like not still on the upswing. I mean, I guess you could say Smart now is probably in like his prime, but everyone else who plays is still like probably hasn't even hit their primes yet. So again, to think if all those guys kind of get that bump of going through this run and a full off season and rest and come back, like I don't think it's unreasonable to expect that the Jays, Rob, Grant, Pritchard, all these guys should be better players and more reliable players. So I think that, hopefully will cover up a lot of our issues. And then again, just adding a few pieces on the fringe, to me, like that's kind of the move. It's not sexy, but when you're 2 games from the finals with this young of a team, like we don't have to get crazy. The formula works. It's proven. It's there. Let's just bolster things a little bit and keep kind of going for it with the same approach. And I think, again, we talked about how big it was that we kind of established this identity and style, and we've kind of won with like bludgeoning teams with our defense. And to me, that's the biggest kind of risk with any hypothetical move. I think it all has to be looked at as like, okay, how is this guy going to fit in with what our team does, with our culture, with our defense and our style? And then it's, I guess, like how far are we willing to like reach for a guy who might not? A lot of these guys we're talking about where you want like a scorer. Well, again, it's hard to find guys. Again, if these guys were good at everything, they wouldn't really be available. So it's like, how much are we willing to sacrifice to potentially take on a minus defender if they can give us like the scoring punch that we need? And I don't know. It's tough. You don't want to mess with it because, again, we found such a good thing that it's tough to mess with. And we saw how even missing like one guy could really mess things up. So, I mean, again, we talked about some of these guys who are great scorers, but maybe defensive liabilities. And it's just like, how far are we willing to reach, and how much would that even be like a net positive for us at the end of the day?
Right. No, I know. I mean, I agree that we shouldn't be like home run swings on guys. We don't want to risk ruining what we built.
Sure.
Just
for an example of a name, and this isn't one of the guys I had on my list, but someone who I've seen speculation among Celtics fans and media that he'd be a good guy is Duncan Robinson.
Oh, yeah. Again, I hate that.
Well, right, but I think that's one where I get why people would say that, because it's like, there you go. There's your wing player. There's your shooting. There's your scoring that we don't have. And it's like, okay, but we just saw him not be able to play almost against us in the playoffs because of how poor his defense was. And it's like, I just don't know that we want to bring in a guy where I think one of the things that was so good about the Celtics and allowed us to be so successful was the fact that like we're not putting in anyone who's not a good defender. So
right.
Again, it's going to be hard to fill kind of the needs I described with someone who's just as good as the rest of our players on defense. But I think it's something to consider, and you can't just look at this like it's, a video game or fantasy basketball and say, oh, well, this guy can make threes, let's bring him aboard. Because, the defense is so reliant on the way we play, the switching, the communication, all that. So if suddenly everyone has to cover, it's like now we're drifting back into where we were with Kemba and IT and that kind of stuff. Like, yeah. I know it's a completely different team, but it's kind of the same concept there. And I'd be careful, and it's like, something I want Celtics fans to kind of have caution with when considering a number of different players, is that like, okay, is this someone who's going to tank our defense when they go in?
Right. So
and keep the ball moving. I mean, even if it's not just the defense, like Schroeder was a fine defender, but his style didn't mesh with what we wanted to do, which was kind of pushing the pace and moving the ball.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, like, I think you can take a flyer on on a guy like that if he's 11th guy. If it's just like a guy who's a lights out shooter, like Like if Duncan Robinson came in dollars to be a guy that you could come in and just a specialist.
Well,
you could
the contract, unfortunately, is not that. But yeah, I get what
if there was a guy like Duncan Robinson that was cheap and he was just a 3-point specialist, but he was a defensive liability. But you bring him in for 5 minutes and hope he can give you a spark or,
and I think
hit 3 threes in a row and then go back to the bench.
Sure. Well, and to almost play devil's advocate to myself, like you could go the other way and say, like, okay, our defense is so good that, we should be able to cover up for like one bad defender if they can bring this awesome offensive element that the team is lacking.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying there's even like a right or wrong way. Like I said, could say, okay, the team's so good at defense, we can afford a couple guys who maybe aren't great because the rest of our defenders can cover up for them. And if they're, shooting 40% from 3 and scoring 12 points a game, that's well worth it.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of saw that with like Jordan Poole, I guess.
For sure. And we kind of do that with Pritchard to an extent. I mean, before he went ice cold, when he was hitting shots for us, that was kind of the rub with Pritchard. It was like, okay, this guy's clearly going to be like our weak link on defense, but he was giving us a lot of the ball handling and shooting that we weren't really getting from anyone else on the roster. So it was like when he was on fire, especially in the regular season, like we can live with, not having an elite defender out there because he's giving us so much else. So a guy like that, that's kind of the tug of war that you're going to have to play with when you're looking at bench players, again, because the amount of guys with, size and versatility, shooting and good on defense, like there just aren't many of them. And most of them are like star players or really, really highly paid and highly coveted role players.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially like you said, in the regular season, you can get away with a lot more. So, I mean, if we're talking about regular season guys that can, give our stars a blow,
right?
During the regular season, keeping them fresh. I mean, that's valuable,
right? And that's again, I think so much of it is just finding regular season minutes is, like I said, it's certainly not sexy to the fans, but that it could make a world of difference. And again, like I said, you just look at the playoff minutes, and it was like Tatum by the end of the playoffs had played almost double the amount of minutes as Steph Curry, and it showed.
Yep. Right.
And part of that is, again, the Warriors took care of business and beat the Mavs in 5, beat the Nuggets in 5. Well, we're playing these grueling series, and part of that is like, well, if we showed up every night and we could have put the Bucks and Heat away a little quicker, then maybe that is just the answer to some of these problems too. So there's a lot of different elements, but I think at the end of the day, it's pretty clear that we need our best players to be fresher by the end of the season.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that.
Yeah. All right. What real quickly, I guess, what do you think? What are your thoughts on an actual star trade? Because the Beal rumors have started already. Now, like, there's been some weird DeJounte Murray talk. I don't know if you consider him quite like a star, and I'm not sure how well he'd fit. But I mean, he made the All-Star team this year. The John Collins rumors have reemerged again, not like a star per se, but I would say any of those like 3 or someone on that level would be like a pretty damn big splash for this team, and would require giving up. I mean, I think it would be obviously a lot of picks, but we'd need to give up at least, I would think, one of like our starters, one of our non-J starters at the very least. Like a Beal trade is taking at least Al, and then probably like Grant and Pritchard, maybe even more. DeJounte, same thing. We're not getting him for just a TPE and picks. Like any of those guys, you're giving up real players. So I guess how do you think those are at all, like anything like that is realistic? Like how shocked would you be to see a deal go down like that? And I guess what's your appetite for it even? Like what would you be willing to give up for Beal? Like, do you see it as like, okay, now we're this close, Beal's the missing piece, let's go all in and make it the Jays and Beal and boom? Or are you kind of like, I don't know if I want to blow up the rest of the team for a guy like that? And again, I also don't even know how realistic these moves are. Probably not very.
the Beal rumors aren't going to go away until, he's traded or,
Right.
I don't know. Washington.
Yeah.
I mean, that rumor will still be there next year and the year after that until he retires, probably.
Right. But is that still a dream for you, or are you kind of just like whatever?
A dream. I think there were times, closer to, I guess, his prime, because he's what, 30 now?
Yeah, I think so.
Very talented.
Right.
He didn't have a great season,
He had a
but
bad season.
he's also playing for an awful team. I don't know. I mean, you see these veteran players who kind of look like they're on the back nine playing for bad teams, and then they have a research about him necessarily. But I mean, players at his age that are his size than the other guys.
Yeah,
so
he's never been a great defender.
So there are some reasons to be concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about like a third, and you could argue would be our second, depending on how well he plays. But
no, I mean
he's a high end. Team. So I don't think, and if it's like, obviously it depends on what the first Al and, like you said, Grant and Pritchard. That's probably something I would take.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming that would mean like at least 2 or 3 first-round picks.
Right. And I mean,
you're like emptying the treasure chest, so to speak.
Yeah. So I mean, this making a trade like that pretty much prevents you from making another big trade. That's like your big acquisition in the Jays era, basically. So, the Celtics would have to be very convinced that that's the right move.
Yeah.
Really know for, a year or two. So, I mean...
No, I still think it's kind of where we've been at with Beal, where it's like, unless he decides, like, I want to go to Boston and play with Tatum, and basically goes and says that to ownership to the point where it's just like, okay, have all our picks and we'll take him, then obviously do it. But outside of that, yeah, I kind of am like, stay the course. We don't need to blow up this roster to try to go star hunting right now.
But I mean, like going back to that trade you said, a few firsts. Well, 2.5 huge rotational players for us. Starter, 1.5 starters if you want to consider, Grant. Yeah. So that's a lot of minutes that we're giving up, and some key players, for our, throughout our playoff run. But guys like that are easy.
Of course.
With veterans and what, finding a Bradley Beal. So,
of course,
as much as I love Al, he's going to be 36. As good as he was, there's no guarantee that he'll even be, half as good next year. I mean, maybe he was just fresh from not playing the year before. Maybe this playoff run really will.
Right.
Field, and there isn't another move like that, I would definitely consider it. And DeJounte Murray, I'm a big DeJounte Murray fan. I don't know if maybe he's the perfect fit, but I think he fills those needs. I mean, he can be a playmaker.
I'm just not really worried. My thing with DeJounte is I just don't know, like, how effective he's going to be without the ball, and I just don't think he's a great.
He's not a great shooter,
right?
Yeah.
Like, I get, obviously in theory he's a really good player. He's a good defender. His stats, I mean, he averages a near triple double.
Yeah.
But Again, same thing. If you can get him without giving up like real stuff, great. But
he kind of profiles as like a, I hate going back to Wiggins every time, but I mean, not a great 3-point shooter. He's got a good mid range, good slasher. I mean, I guess Wiggins is a good rebounder all of a sudden. So,
well, the thing too with Murray is that he's a point guard. He has the ball in his hand. So then, does that mean that Smart's moving back to the 2? And then it's like, I mean, again, it's just like our issue. We keep talking about when he's shooting. Now we have 2 guards who both aren't really great shooters, and it's like, is the floor just getting more crowded for the Jays? I don't know.
No. I mean, that's obviously probably why he's available, I guess.
If he even is available.
Yeah. If he was an average 3-point shooter, he'd be a superstar.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, obviously these guys that are available.
Right. And I'm not sure how realistic any of these are. Is there anyone though, like in that stratosphere of star that you'd really be like, you'd go, I don't want to say all in, but that you'd be, willing to kind of like aggressively pursue?
I mean, I just don't. I don't think anyone is available that I would make that. Know.
Yeah. No, I
mean, like, if I don't even know. I was gonna say like if on with Zion, maybe you make that move?
Well,
but obviously he's not the perfect fit either. But
no. I mean, I mean, if a young, legitimate superstar is available,
right? But I just don't like. I don't know. I can't think of someone in that class who's realistically available.
No, I can't either.
That I would go all in for.
Like Collins, that noise has always been out there. That doesn't really do anything for me.
Well,
I mean, that might be the most crazily realistic scenario out of all of this. Is if the Kyrie thing goes south and Durant decides he doesn't want to be in Brooklyn anymore. We've kind of half jokingly mentioned how he almost chose Boston. He obviously has a relationship with Ime and now with Tatum and some of these guys. So maybe. And then it's like, I don't know. I don't want to say I don't want that because it's like obviously he comes on our team and we're like the clear favorites to win it all. But it would feel a little dirty.
Yeah, no, it would. And I don't know if that. Well, I mean, like the whole point is to win championships. So if it's like you make that,
like I said, you're not going to say no to that. It's we have been a 5 year where we're going to be the favorites if everyone's healthy, pretty much no matter what.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess you kind of have to make that move if it's on the table. But I think adding to more realistic and probably the better core.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if you're getting KD, he's, I know we saw pretty much changed our hierarchy from, KD's probably slotted in as your number one, number 1A with Tatum.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I think we kind of already, Tatum pretty much said himself that, he deferred to KD in the, in their, and he kind of obviously realized KD told him not to, but I think there's just like a natural tendency to defer to the more comp.
Yeah,
it's like you're basically slotting everyone, moving everyone down a notch.
Well, and the thought would be that Durant is ready to maybe step back from being like an MVP candidate type of player, and we'll let the Jays do the heavy lifting, but suddenly he's our closer. That would be, kind of all the issues we had all year with crunch time and closing leads. It would be like, here you go, KD. We got you a 12-point lead with 5 minutes left. Close the deal.
Is Durant and Rob Williams is pretty appealing.
Yeah. If that's the thing, that's like obviously a game changer. I'm still not ready to think that that's like a thing. But
Why thing
well,
outside
again,
of that starting that
if
those five?
everything falls apart and Durant says he wants out. Like,
Yeah. Right.
But so I don't think we need to discuss that. Yeah.
Too fired up about it.
Probably a good idea. All right. So yeah.
And I don't think anyone's available.
Okay. On that far level. Yeah, I'm with you. So I mean, again, we said the draft is tonight. Obviously, the Celtics don't have a first. We have the 53rd overall pick. What's your ideal outcome for tonight? Do you think there's any chance we trade into the first round? Do you even think there's like any reason really to do that? Do you think we try to move this pick? I mean, I don't know what you can get for the 53rd pick, but maybe an end of bench veteran, or do you think we should just pick the best player available? Another staff guy, like I don't know. It's tough when it's one pick and it's so late, but at the same time, when we're so close, it's like every asset you have, you gotta do something with it.
Draft, which I think the most realistic path to maximizing that pick would be to trade it for a future second or something. You know, any reason to add at 53. I mean, I know like you sometimes chances are it's, a stash guy, another stash guy, or, a project guy that maybe doesn't turn into anything. So, I mean,
right.
I think it's probably a kick the can down the road scenario, I think is what I'm looking for.
It probably is. But
decent.
Right. That's an option. If that's an option, then yes. I mean, great. Like I said, I don't think unless someone falls and a team just loves him and is like, we'll give you this guy for the pick and you do it, great. Yeah. But I mean, to me, I feel like I kind of say every year that my kind of sweet spot in the NBA draft, once you get past the lottery and you're trying to like find success, to me is usually look for the guys who are a little older, have already been good players in college, but maybe don't have that upside that other teams are looking for. So someone who is maybe, like a Grant Williams, exactly. I mean, and obviously Grant was, a first round pick. So at 53, you're not going to get someone with that pedigree. But I've looked, there's a lot of guys who are really good college players. And, you're not trying to strike gold here maybe and find the next Giannis. You're just trying to find someone who can contribute right away and just play on the court. Those guys, maybe they're not available, but I think that's kind of what I would go for. Maybe like a veteran point guard, kind of like almost similar to what Pritchard was. But if you can find, another ball handler like that who just trustworthy or, a sniper. And again, these are much easier said than done. And we've seen, we've attempted that with much better pick equity and it hasn't worked. But I guess that would be kind of the type of player I'd go for if we do keep the pick, is maybe an older guy who could hopefully step in right away and give you some minutes would be awesome.
I know I've seen some rumors that Celtics are trying to get into the first.
Yeah, which, I mean, I'm sure they're
making Grant and Pritchard available.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
If there's somebody you love, I mean, fine. But again, is that like those guys were late first round picks and they've now finally gotten good? We want to turn that into more late first round picks who will hopefully be good. Like, I don't know.
They'd want to do that is used for another trade.
Sure.
So, I mean, if that's the case, then, obviously, you explore it, but
yeah, I mean, I trust this front office to do their due diligence. And like I said, everything has, at this point, we're so close. The window is open. So now everything has to be viewed as an asset and you got to maximize every asset. And if that's flipping Grant and Pritchard for first and turning that into a much better player, then you do that. And like I said, I trust Brad. I trust the organization to do the right thing. And It's funny too how like noticeably different it is, and I mean, I guess part of this is probably that we've been so focused on the finals for so long that we haven't really started to even think about the offseason until the last couple of days. But like, just the narratives and like rumors, I guess, surrounding the Celtics with this regime compared to Danny, where it's like, I mean, other than you said, like, yeah, we've heard that maybe like Pritchard and Grant are available for a late first, but the lack of like insane rumors that were mentioned in is, I guess, I would say refreshing. It's just a different course, and it's kind of nice. Like, we're now like the quiet, lurking team where, it's not like we're attached to every single player.
Yeah, it is refreshing. It's
different.
So I don't know, and it's people aren't like as disappointed. Fan base isn't as disappointed when they don't make a big splash.
Right, we don't need the fireworks anymore.
Right,
it seemed like maybe we did, but
so I don't know. It's I think Brad's proven, has shown in his short tenure that he will.
Definitely, now is the time for sure. And I mean, again, like I said, we've got that $17 million TPE from Fournier, which expires, I think, at the end of July. So
gotta use that.
I mean, which again is easier said than done because a lot of teams don't want to give you a good player for nothing. So if it's going to be maybe Neesmith, a pick in the TPE, again, that could be our last real crack. That'll put us well into the tax, and that's the move. But it seems like that's probably the kind of move we have to make. Would be my guess, and that's our only path to just adding a real piece to this team without giving up our rotation player.
Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of goes back to the Neesmith, where he might have some value.
Yeah, right. So, like I said, I made a list of about 30-ish guys, and I think all of these are there's either been rumors they're available. There's me kind of, connecting some dots and thinking that they could be available, or just kind of maybe they're not even super available, but would be like, they're all underneath the star level that none of these guys are off limits. Some of them, the teams are probably completely open to moving them. But I think they all at least somewhat fit the areas I was describing. They're mostly wing players. I think they're all guys who kind of fit what we're looking for and are somewhat realistically attainable. So we'll do a much longer offseason preview in the coming weeks, as this has already gotten pretty long. But with the draft being tonight, the deals are about to start going down. So I'm going to run through this list, and you can kind of give me like your 10-second reaction to each name. Does that seem reasonable?
Yeah.
All right. So here are some of the guys that I think we could make a move for. And a lot of these guys would fit the TPE. Some of them would not. Some of them are free agents. So, like I said, I think they're all pretty acquirable without giving up a rotation guy. So, first, the first names on my list, starting with the Wizards, but not Bradley Beal, Kyle Kuzma and or Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Yeah, both would fit into the TPE. I mean, it's one or the other, obviously. Not both. But I think both would fit well.
Yeah, I mean, actually available out of all these people on the list. But just from a fit perspective, I would.
For most of these guys, unless otherwise, assume that the package would basically be the TPE, Neesmith, and a first, or something like that. Maybe like Pritchard instead of Neesmith, but a marginal rotation player, a first-round pick, and we get back the player basically.
Yeah, so I would do that for both of them.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So I mean,
that'd be nice. Kuzma would be a great bench wing who I think would fill a lot of the needs we're talking about here.
Nice to go game to game. I mean, that's always
for sure. Yeah. And it would just be funny because of all the Lakers fans who used to say like, "Oh, Kuzma's better than Tatum." Like,
Yeah, no. So it would be nice for that to come like full
he'd be a
circle
good
in a way.
piece, and he'd kind of be a natural. Like, he could play the four too, so he'd be a natural kind of replacement for Al with his age, hopefully. So, all right, we'll see how realistic those are. But again, it's kind of weird because like they brought in those guys to play with Beal, and like KCP is like Beal's best friend, I think. So it's like, well, they're probably not going to move those guys unless they're completely blowing it up, and then it's a whole different thing. But anyway, all right. So that's kind of the Wizards. Then another team that there's some rumors they might be looking to do like a soft blow up. The Raptors. OG Anunoby. There's been rumors floating around that he could be available. Now I think he's probably a little higher level. Like, I think we'd probably have to give up maybe 2 firsts. Would you give up 2 firsts and maybe Pritchard or something to bring in OG? Yeah, I think
Big OG guy.
he'd be a great fit. Similar to Kuzma, but a little better.
Threes,
Yeah.
wing. I mean, that's pretty much exactly what we're looking for.
Yeah, I would love that too.
Never been like.
No, and we wouldn't need him to be. Yeah. Yeah, I think the toughest thing with him is that if he's leaving Toronto, the idea is probably that he wants like a bigger role, and I don't really know that we can give him that.
Yeah.
So
Into the starting rotation.
yeah, I guess he could be the starting 4, but still, I mean, he's never going to be better than like the 3rd option offensively, and I think that's what he wants. But
he'd be like a 30+ minute player.
oh yeah, no, it would be
You play like a star or whatever, you're gonna get more options. And I mean, being
definitely. Yeah, no, that's fair. We'll see. I just don't know what he wants.
or say man, and when you're uh
Yeah, I mean, he's probably one of the bigger pipe dreams I have on this list, but he
yeah.
would just obviously be incredible to add him to the Jays. If Toronto is blowing it up, also maybe Gary Trent Jr. Not as big, not as good a defender, but a better shooter.
Yeah, I mean, Gary.
Yeah. Our friend Bruce Brown from the Nets, I believe he's a free agent if they can't bring him back.
Yeah, he was on my list.
Doesn't really fulfill the shooting needs, but I mean, just a great role player. Obviously.
Yeah,
the Boston guy.
But a very solid.
Mm-hmm.
A few times, I think, in our.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I mean,
not serious.
Yeah, doesn't solve the shooting, obviously.
Right, it solves almost everything else. Yeah. Hometown discount.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't think he's gonna, require.
No. Yeah. All right, a guy who's hurt, and I don't know when he'll be able to come back, but this would be more of like a stash in our IR and hope that he can get healthy in time for the playoffs. Would be Danny Green.
But
well, no, but
he's obviously hurt. But I mean, I don't know. What is he? Is he a vet minimum?
Good shooter, good defender, reliable guy. I mean, how many titles has he won? Well, I think he's still under contract. I don't know.
Oh, is he?
It'd be tough again with the injury, but I mean, we could definitely take him in with the TPE if the team was just trying to get rid of him. I mean, I think Philly's going to try to use his contract for a trade because they won't need something. So if he ends up on, if like a tanking team, like OKC, for example, if they do a trade with Philly and end up taking Danny Green's contract, they might be happy to dump him to us for like a 2nd round pick. And then we hope that he heals. Yeah, no.
it becomes available to us.
Right. Yeah. I think he's making like 10 mil-ish.
That really a guy that do you really want to?
Well,
hoping is.
I mean, again, with the TPE, like it's just kind of money that's going to go away. Like we're already over the cap, so it's like we either use the TPE or we don't. So if the best we can get is Danny Green, like the only negative at that point would be that the owners are spending more money. So like I don't care. Oh, right, exactly.
Yeah, then yes.
Okay. The Pacers guys, Malcolm Brogdon. I think he's a little above the TPE, but could get the salary there, and then with a first or so, maybe make that happen.
Yes, love bro.
Yeah. I think he probably gets moved tonight for a first. I think Brogdon probably gets moved tonight for a first. Not to us, but if he was like about to get, he'd be a good fit.
Player on and
Yeah. There's another guy on that team that would be cool. It would. One of his teammates who we haven't really seen in a while, who would be another kind of reclamation project, but might actually be a better fit, is T.J. Warren. Wow. Okay.
that's it. He
That's
might be a good.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. I would like Warren actually. I think he could provide a lot of that kind of bench microwave scoring with some decent defense. But we'll see. We haven't really seen it in a few years.
He profiles as the right player. I don't want to.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
The reason can't explain it.
Wes Matthews, which would be a double whammy because we'd be taking him away from Milwaukee. I think he's a free agent. He might have 1 year left. I'm not sure.
One via Milwaukee, then yeah, I like. In that playoff run, so yeah, like Wes Matthews.
Yeah, I think he's got some kind of player option or I'm not sure of what it's a non-guaranteed contract, so I think he could be had. But yeah, I think he'd be a great kind of veteran fit player for us who can play on both ends. Give us some of what we're looking for. Yeah, why? Is there another one you wanted? Buddy. Jeez. Forgot about Buddy. Forgot that he was on the Pacers. I didn't put him on my list. I don't know. Do you want Buddy? I'm not sure. He's a lot of money and not good at defense, really. But,
Defender.
yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, all right. I should have put him on the list. He'd be a little too pricey for the TPE.
Yeah, I know. So that's another thing.
But yeah, I mean, I guess you could bring Buddy in
to some extent, and a guy that can.
He checks some of the boxes, no doubt. True. Yeah.
That.
All right. Buddy should have been on
somewhere between 29 and 35. So.
Okay. True. Gary Harris. Yeah, I'd like that a lot.
I feel like, he's a solid 3-point shooter. I know.
Yeah. No, he had a few good years in Denver where his scoring was pretty good. He looked like a legit secondary scorer, but obviously got hurt, kind of fell off, and then was in Orlando, which was I think he's a kind of guy who kind of checks a lot of the boxes too, and would be a good vet at this point. Who you would think is ready to just kind of contribute to winning.
A star.
Right. Perfect role.
Box.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So yes.
PJ Tucker.
Sure.
You know how much I love PJ Tucker.
Oh yeah, I mean
He's
PJ.
a dog. Yeah. Yeah, just a good, reliable playoff player. Not pretty, but he'd help it. He has helped every team basically he's ever gone to. So, and you'd be taking him away from Miami, which is another kind of bonus there. Kelly Oubre. What do you think of that one?
Kelly's a solid player, but I don't know if he's
Trust. Yeah.
I
It
mean,
just seemed like
he's very confident.
Yeah. Which hey, sometimes you want that in a bench guy. A little irrational confidence. I think he fits. He checks a lot of the boxes as well, at least theoretically.
Yeah.
All right, I got a couple of Hawks guys. It seems like the Hawks are ready to make some moves. Maybe Kevin Herter, or maybe Bogey, maybe Gallinari. He's obviously not a wing, but I think any of those three guys could probably be had.
Yeah, I like. I like Herder because of the age.
Yeah, the size too. He can play a little defense.
Yeah, so I like that. And it's
Like
weird.
Herter.
I mean, I guess
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe the route or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I think all those guys would be good.
he's good, young. I don't know. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
what his contract situation is, but I assume he's still on his rookie deal.
Herter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's up to be paid soon, and that would be the thought that Atlanta doesn't want to pay him. So we could get him on the cheap and then pay him once he's in house. I mean, maybe. I think he'd be a pretty ideal target.
Bogey and Gallinari, I kind of put them in the same
Yeah.
score.
No.
But guys that can be
Bogey
a
could
little.
give you the shooting and the ball handling and playmaking, though, which would be nice.
So I mean,
Yeah.
so I mean, if but I think Herder and Bogey are probably no brainers. If
Mm-hmm. All right. What about if someday you think the Clippers can't just keep stockpiling all of these players? So if any of them come available between like Mook, Norm Powell, Robert Covington, Luke Kennard, Nicholas Batum, basically anyone, I feel like they have so many wings, and I mean that's by design. And there's no indication that Ballmer is looking to shed any money. But if you can't play 20 guys, so I think almost all of those guys could help us. I don't know how what the team would think of bringing back Mook Morris. I'm not sure how well they got along, but I mean he's that in theory, like what he brings, I think is nice. I think a lot of those guys would be pretty good fits here. Yeah. Okay. Old friend Jay Crowder.
good for, he's
Mm-hmm.
he's
Another dog, kind of
he's
like
a
a
dot.
PJ Tucker.
Right. Yeah. He's
Not exactly a knockdown shooter, but he can get hot. Yeah, he's solid.
solid defense,
Yeah, exactly.
and he's
Another guy,
on
a
winning
winner.
teams. So
Yeah, exactly. His teammate Torrey Craig is kind of a similar player.
sure.
Big wing, can play defense and can play up to the four. I mean, I think he'd be kind of an ideal 9th or 10th man you could trust. Guy I've wanted for years. I don't even know if he's available, but I always put his name on these lists. Harrison Barnes. He'd kind of be the perfect guy, but I don't know if it's realistic. Right, and it seems like they're still all in on winning. So
Yeah.
no
So,
indication he's available, but would be
yeah,
cool. And it's
would
put Justin
definitely
Holiday
take.
on there as well. If they wanted to move Justin Holiday, he'd be another ideal fit. Um, Malik Beasley from the T Wolves.
Um, yeah, why not? I mean, he's
Another wing who can,
he,
shoot the hell out of the ball. Fits into the CPE.
still pretty.
Youngish, I want to say maybe 26, 25. Um, here's another guy who would be stashing on our bench and kind of waiting for him to get healthy, but Joe Ingles.
I
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if he'll ever be healthy enough to contribute again, but if he's kind of willing to sign in like rehab with us, like he would be kind of an ideal fit who can almost like run some point guard. Like he's a pick and roll maestro. He's a knockdown shooter, and he's like weirdly good at defense. Before he got hurt, like he would be almost like an awesome sixth man, and you who could do some different things, and even probably be in some closing lineups for us in the right circumstances. So
yeah.
again, I don't know if that version of Joe Ingles will ever exist again, but I'd be willing to like use a bench spot on him and hope that he can.
If he's looking just to rehab and get healthy
Yeah.
for the playoffs, he'd be a good fit.
Yep. Ben McLemore.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, he doesn't really excite me at all.
Well, I think he'd be more of like a minimum. I don't think we'd have to give up anything for him.
Yeah, I mean, if he's a minimum
Yeah.
guy who just wants to come in and play sporadic minutes, sure.
Eric Gordon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what we'd have to give, but I mean, I would love to get Gordon in as like a sixth man. Would be pretty awesome.
I can't believe he's still
I know. I don't think he will be for long.
years ago.
Yeah. Although he's still good. I still think they're gonna probably get something for him from a contender.
Yeah, no, he's still good, and they'll get something for him. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, probably not. Daniel House.
Again, he's another guy that doesn't really excite me, but
No, but he's just solid.
anyone that could contribute.
Yeah, yeah. The other Bogdanovich from Utah.
I mean, he can shoot. Sure.
Yeah, he can shoot. He can handle a little bit.
Yeah.
He can get super hot. He's got some size. Danny H maybe will help us out there. I don't know.
Nice.
His teammate Royce O'Neal, who probably would be a little harder to acquire, but
a versatile kind of do-it-all guy.
He shoots pretty well, actually.
Does he?
Yeah.
He's a guy I like because he's like kind of a Swiss Army knife kind of guy.
Right.
And,
speaking of Swiss Army knives, another guy I've long been pining for the Celtics to get, our buddy Slow-Mo, Kyle Anderson.
Yeah. I mean,
wish he was a little better at shooting. His three-point shot really abandoned him this year. But again, I mean, if you're talking about like an eighth man, he'd be a great wing off the bench, I think.
Yeah, no, it's a lot to like about him, and he'd be a good fit. So.
And the last guy on my list is another Grizzly, DeAnthony Melton, who I think might just be the odd man out because they have so many good kind of young players.
He said he hasn't really.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so that's pretty much my list, and then I added a couple of non-wings who I thought could be good options. Old friend Kelly Olynyk. He just might be the best we can get for the TPE. And then he's got a good, reliable backup big who can knock down threes.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
could
I
be
guess
worse. It could be a lot worse than Kelly O.
if we're if they were going with the idea that he's the best we can do, then yeah. I mean,
he'd be
I always like Kelly.
He'd be a solid guy who could give you similar minutes to Al. At least in the regular season, you can play Kelly 30 minutes a night and he'll be fine.
Yeah, the fans would love it too. So good for morale.
Fans would love it. Yet another injured rehab project, Ricky Rubio.
I like the profile. He proved. I mean, he
was great last year for Cleveland before he got hurt.
Obviously great ball handler and
solid defender. Right.
Try and break us out of a slump, or if we're getting stagnant, he can,
Yep. I mentioned to you that maybe if the Knicks are trying to clear cap space for Kyrie or something, that they could be parting with some guys, and maybe we could get like Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks would kind of solve two of our problems on the bench. We get a shooter and a ball handler and a backup big.
Nerlens is,
Yeah, right. Can you fill that void?
Unit.
And then Tyus Jones, who's a free agent, would be a great backup point guard, I think.
I want a good backup point guard. I want ball. I think we need ball handling at some.
Yeah. I think that'll help.
I did see that. What about go back to Memphis? I thought I saw that Dylan Brooks could potentially be available.
Maybe. I don't know. I think he makes a decent amount of money. But I think he does. Yeah, I think he got paid. But I mean, maybe he's another. I mean, I don't super love or trust his shot. Oh no, he actually doesn't make that much money. You're right. Yeah, if they're trying to move him, maybe.
What's his contract?
He's gonna make about $11.5 million next year, but it's expiring. So I don't know if a 1-year rental on a guy like that. Maybe. Yeah. No, I mean,
seems part of the future. I mean, he's
in theory, he's certainly a confident shooter.
He's been a solid.
Yeah, no, he's a very good defender. It's, I think, the offensive stuff. I mean, I think if Celtics fans have been driven crazy by Marcus Smart, I think this could be like Smart times 5 because he will let it fly.
Yeah.
And he arguably lost them a couple playoff games because he just wouldn't stop shooting and could not make a shot. But I mean, he is a dog.
Yeah. He's not afraid to intentionally injure somebody either.
Very unafraid.
Right.
I mean, that's a pretty expansive list. I don't know is there anyone else around the league who you are surprised I didn't mention there?
Or wings.
Yeah, I mean, I was mostly focusing on wings there. But is there
I saw somebody mention that Gary Payton might be.
Oh, yes. Now that is another one I would love. Feels like the Warriors are just willing to spend whatever to keep their guys, and it's hard to believe they'd let him go after what he just did for them. But yeah, I mean, if he comes available, absolutely.
Yeah, so I like that.
I didn't, but yeah, I mean, those Nuggets guys, Barton, Monty Morris, maybe. I just don't know how available they would be, and I don't know.
I would have, I mean, he's gone now, but I would have loved Jeremy Grant.
Yeah.
I feel like they
wants to get him.
I know. Give up much, and
Portland. Maybe.
Oh, no.
It was a 2025 Milwaukee first. So, yeah, I mean, a beatable deal, I would say, if we were looking for it. But yeah, I think he costs more than the TPE, so it'd be
not much more though, right?
well, no, but it doesn't matter. I mean, we'd still have to get the salary together. So,
but I mean, I think we could find a way to match salary, and it would improve the team.
Definitely.
If we had a 3-way or something, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, what can you do? But all right, I think that's a lot to marinate. A lot of names to think about. A lot of that doesn't get the juices flowing. I don't know what will. But yeah, like I said, we'll be back after the draft. I'm sure there'll be some stuff to process, and then we can kind of dig in more specifically to off season. But I think that kind of put a bow on the 2021-22 season and started to look forward to the future. And I like where we're at. Anything else you want to get off your chest, Celtics wise?
No, I mean, it was a rough ending, but it was a good season.
Yeah.
Future looks bright. I'm, for the next season, and
yeah, absolutely. I echo those sentiments. It was a great season. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to building on that. So thanks for joining us as always. Enjoy the draft tonight. Should be fun. I think we'll get a lot of deals. Maybe not for the Celtics, but I think in general it'll be a fun night for NBA fans. I'm looking forward to it, and then we'll dig into free agency and what's next. So as always, we appreciate it, Chuddy heads. Go C's.
Go C's.
Strip the bolts on them. Should've never sent them to pick up the work for them. Sprayed the park and had my shit inside the car. Marcus Smart boy was shooting with a 36 on him. Said if he wasn't in a rush, they was all goners. Tech cursive on the Jets, he was gonna Sean John them. They was sleeping on the guard and it dawned on them.